Welcome to RPG Book Club. It's your boy Sam. Trish is out this week, and our idea for a bonus episode was discussing the Nintendo Direct, but by the time that we had set to record over the weekend, it hadn't dropped yet. As of recording right now, it has, so I can say Phantom Brave 2 hype, but we couldn't last week. So instead, here's one of the episodes that you're missing out on from the bonus feed, and then next week we'll be back with our first episode of Persona 3 Reload, which covers the month of April in the game. But until then, here is the JRPG Canon episode I recorded on Bahamut Lagoon. Enjoy. JRPG Canon, the ongoing project to document the first slice of a JRPG, talk about why it works, and what's fun about these games that we like so much. If you'd like a better intro as to the purpose and idea behind the series, check out the first 2 episodes on Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest so you can get an idea what's going on, and then you can come right back to this one. I am Sam Allman, and today we'll be taking a look at another commissioned episode. This one's for Bahamut Lagoon. This episode was brought to you by Cerebral Wind, our good friend of the podcast. Joining me today is my co-host, Bernard.
Hello, I'm Sam's co-host, Bernard.
Bernard, do you have any history with Bahamut Lagoon at all?
No.
Was it like on your radar or anything as something to check out? Or
I mean, I'd heard of it. I'd seen screenshots and thought that looked okay.
Okay. I've been wanting to play Bahamut Lagoon for a while. When I was working at Google, we had hours of we're paid to be on call, basically, where we have to sit there and just wait for something to break. And it wasn't breaking very often. And so I was playing games on the clock. The first one I tried to play was Bahamut Lagoon, but the website I was using that had the emulator in the web browser, they had messed up the patch, and so it corrupted after about a minute of playing the game. But it was on my radar for a long time because I'm a Final Fantasy nerd, and Bahamut is really fucking cool because he's Bahamut, and this is a game about Bahamut, and I thought that would make it super awesome. I didn't know what Lagoon had to do with anything, but I mean, I figured Bahamut was like, it was Bahamut's beach episode of a game, and that seemed like it would be pretty cool. So it's been
also,
on
you're a Final Fantasy fan, and it has some Final Fantasy people attached to it.
Yes. I did not know that until relatively recently, though. I just had heard about it.
You just like the word Bahamut?
I like the word Bahamut because I like the dragon Bahamut from Final Fantasy.
Okay.
But I do remember it being on my radar for like years. Like all of the nerds who were nerdier than me in high school and stuff would be like, that game rules, dude. And that's about all that I knew about it. So I went into this game relatively blind today. And we'll see how that went for us. So let's listen to a little bit of this awesome music by Noriko Matsueda, and then we will talk about the history of this game.
Clicked on Noriko Matsueda's Wikipedia page, and it says she is best known for her work on the Front Mission series, The Bouncer, and Final Fantasy X-2. That rules.
Yeah, the best part is she's basically a like 5-hit wonder. She's done like 5 amazing games and basically nothing else. It's kind of amazing. I was going through and chronicling all of the like Final Fantasy wonders that are on here, and basically Noriko Matsueda just came in, knocked it out of the park a couple of times, and is like, you know what, that's all I need. So full disclosure before we dive deep into the history of this game hasn't come out in the West yet. We're playing a fan translation of it. Its Wikipedia pages cites sources for what it says, but all of the sources that it cites, except for like one or two, are out of print Japanese gaming magazines that aren't available online anywhere. So everything I pull from Wikipedia might be false. So if I say something wrong, it's not my fault. I did my darndest. I did find a couple of interviews that I pulled mostly from, but if anything's wrong, it's because this game isn't very well documented in English. So Bahamut Lagoon was conceived by Hitoshi Sasaki, who previously had done the monster designs in Final Fantasy VI, and he came up with the concept.
I thought Tetsuya Nomura did the monster designs in Final Fantasy VI. They both work on it?
They both worked on it. Seeing the designs of this game, it's kind of like with Chrono Trigger. You can tell which songs are Uematsu and which songs are not. And looking back at Final Fantasy VI after playing this game, I can tell which monsters are Nomura and which ones are not. But if I remember correctly, Nomura did some character work, but he mostly did like the environment stuff.
Oh, Nomura was character designer for Setzer and Shadow, and did some other stuff. He did monster designs for Final Fantasy V. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Nah, it's all good. So yeah, Sasaki was the monster designer for Final Fantasy VI, and he went on to do all of the graphics for Bahamut Lagoon, and he was the lead game designer. This game was his baby. It was directed by Kazushige Nojima, who had previously worked as a scenario writer for the Glory of Heracles series, and then he would later go on to famously write Final Fantasies 7, 8, 10, 10-2, 7 Remake, 7 Rebirth. He also wrote Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, and he supervised the story for almost every other Kingdom Hearts game. He's kind of a really big deal.
Yeah, and a lot of those, like a lot of the Final Fantasy novels written by that person, and scenario writer for Advent Children. Yeah, Nojima wrote a lot of stuff.
Yeah. The scenario writer for this game, however, was Motomu Toriyama, who went on to be the director of almost all of those games that I mentioned. They switched jobs after this game, which is hilarious to me. He was also the scenario writer for this game's sequels, Racing Lagoon and Blood of Bahamut, which are actually unrelated, but Square made three games that only share 4 words between them, and all of them are made by the same people, and they are completely unrelated. It's very weird to me that there are 3 games basically named the same thing. But yeah, so as we mentioned a bit ago, the music was done by Noriko Matsueda, and she had worked with Yoko Shimomura on Front Mission and with Mitsuda and Uematsu on Chrono Trigger prior to this. Then would go on to do Tobal No. 1, Racing Lagoon, The Bouncer, and Final Fantasy X-2, among a couple other things. But yeah, basically, I think this is her 3rd credit, and Chrono Trigger, she only wrote 1 song for Chrono Trigger, so it's like her 2nd and a half credit.
Do we know which song?
She
subsequently contributed to the track Boss Battle 1 to Chrono Trigger. Okay, I don't remember which one that is. I'm going to look that up and see if it's good.
It probably is.
I will judge this. I'm famously the person on the podcast that knows about music.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
So yeah, this game is kind of like Chrono Trigger. When we covered that on the main podcast, we talked about how that game was marketed as a dream team of the big 3 people, but turned out to be a dream team of a bunch of people who hadn't had their magnum opus yet. And they're like down to like the font setter goes on to be a writer of a future JRPG thing. Like the Chrono Trigger thing is stacked, and it's kind of the same thing here. The Wikipedia article cites a Game Walker interview that I couldn't find, but it said that the programmer Hiroshi Ono approached Sakaguchi at Square to start a new team with all newbies to develop their own product. Wikipedia also says that this was going to be called Final Fantasy Tactics, and that Sakaguchi loved tactical RPGs, and so he said yes and approved this team. However, according to one of the few interviews that I could find on this game, one with Dengeki Super Famicom Magazine, Sasaki he said that he always had an idea for a game where you raised dragons and fought alongside them. And it was only after starting working and developing on this game idea that he landed on the hybrid turn-based tactics combat that this game has. So obviously it wasn't a tactics RPG, and that's why it got greenlit, because it started out as more of a general turn-based game, but he wanted the dragons to not just feel like party members. He wanted them to be mysterious and unpredictable and wild, feeling like you're actually controlling an animal. So he wanted them to be AI controlled, which led to the tactical battle system, so that they could be like a third faction on the field and not be directly controlled by you. So, to quote the Wikipedia article, further citation is needed about how the team for this got started. Also in that Dengeki interview, he recalled being in an airplane and looking down at the Izu Peninsula in Japan. And he was like, man, I want to do a video game that has that setting, like that feels like that. I am not familiar with the Izu Peninsula, so I looked it up on Google Maps, and the water around the peninsula is like shockingly blue, like not turquoise like Hawaii or Florida Keys or anything. It is like bright royal blue water, so it definitely feels like a blue sky with just floating island on the side of it. The land itself is also like a tropical paradise sort of thing, and so I definitely could see how he would arrive at what he says his idea of a floating lagoon to be the idea for this setting. That's why all of the islands are called lagoons, because that's what he wanted to do. Toriyama, who we were talking about earlier, the scenario writer, he actually hadn't been a scenario writer before this game. He had just done a couple other things. Scenario writer is usually a pretty cush high-level job. That's why all of these people went on to do it forever, is because they then became the boss, and they've been doing scenario writing ever since. But this team was led by the programmer Ono from earlier, and then the artist Sasaki. So they didn't really have anyone who could write. So according to an interview that he did with SquareEnix.com back to celebrate the launch of Blood of Bahamut, he joined their team and started like writing a couple of things, and he just kept on writing throughout all of development and ended up writing the whole scenario. He kind of just bluffed his way into becoming a scenario writer. At GDC 2010, he was doing a FF13 postmortem, and he was talking about when he got started with Bahamut Lagoon, and he said that in the Super NES days, Square was much more laid back and loosey-goosey on things, and it was only after the company grew to have more than 200 people that like former roles and what they did were developed. So the idea of just bluffing your way into a scenario writer position wasn't completely outlandish at the time. Like everybody kind of just did whatever. It was very loosey-goosey, worked on whatever struck your fancy. This game went on to be pretty successful in Japan, but was never localized outside of Japan. It got its first fan translation in 2002 by DJAP Productions and Clyde Mandolin, aka Tomato, who's the fan translator of Mother 3 and Star Ocean. He was the main translator for this game. It was one of his first ones that he did. The translation was pretty good, but a lot of fans didn't really jive with it. They found it to be overly literal. One review of the patch said that it was like eating textual finger paint in his ROM hacking review of the first patch.
Definitely get what they mean by that.
So in 2020, the famed creator of the BeastNess and Heigan emulators, who goes by Nier online, they released their own fan translation of the game after a staggering 23 years of work trying to get it off the ground. There's a really fascinating interview article on Vice with Nier about translating this game and how they found out that fan translating existed with the Final Fantasy V fan translation way back in the 90s. And they were like, oh, okay, I'm going to do one for Bahamut Lagoon since that game didn't come out too. And they were 14 and didn't know anything that they were doing. And they just kind of stumbled into learning how to program because they needed to solve something in the fan translation process. And they learned Japanese and all of this stuff because they had their eye on the prize of translating Bahamut Lagoon. They accidentally invented a super accurate Super NES emulator because they were trying to solve a bug on their Langrisser fan translation, and that's why we have BeastNess now, and it's kind of awesome. That article on Vice is a really good read. It reads like a victory lap and a celebration of Nier, but sadly Nier was the recipient of an online hate harassment campaign, and it ended up with Nier taking their own life just 3 months after this article and just 4 months after their final release of the translation patch. So don't bully people online, man. Just don't do it. Yeah, on that sour note, unfortunately, that's the end of the history of this game. We're playing Nier's translation of the game, and we're going to start talking about what we played after this break.
Listened to Matsueda's track for Chrono Trigger. It is the boss battle track, but I had to remember how it goes. It owns. It's good.
Yeah, the music in this one also owns. Okay, so when you load up the game, you are greeted by an opening showing huge, lovingly rendered dragon sprites flying around the screen, blowing stuff up. It looks really freaking cool for Super NES game. And it definitely sets the stage of like, this is going to be a big ass game with some big ass dragons and a lot of big ass magical things. You select new game and you can see the kingdom of Kana, a floating island in the sky, and it looks like a wonderful place. I hope it doesn't have a downfall anytime soon. And then we get the title cards. This is prologue, the fall of Kana Castle. Dang it. This fan translation that we're playing uses a variable width font, which is important because this is actually the first ever variable width font hack ever made. Back on Nier's first attempt at translating this game, they got as far as inventing variable width ROM hacks, but they didn't have a translator to actually translate the game. So they released what they had done so far, and now variable width fonts are in basically every fan translation ever since. All that's to say that the font here is really good, and I love me a good font. After the title card, we see King Kana standing in front of a sleeping black dragon, much like the one from the Attract mode. This is the titular Bahamut, and he is sleeping. Bahamut is the guardian of the kingdom of Kana, but he will not awaken in their time of need. On the hull of the flagship, which for an unexplained reason looks like a floating island and has no ship-looking parts to it whatsoever, we meet our hero, Bew.
Okay. Back the fuck up. You said that like that's not fucking rad. You said that like that's weird and stupid, not like it owns.
It owns later. At this point, it looks like you're on a floating island. I can see it owning. It looks weird to me. Anywho, we meet our hero Bew and his motley crew of dragon riders. Bew is something called a cross knight, and he is the commander of the Kana dragon. I didn't write down exactly what it's called, but the war dragon squadron. That's it. He's also our main character, so he doesn't speak any, and we get to name him whatever we want. Part of our squad flies off to not be seen again in this game, and then we can talk to our crew. We have Bikibake, Rush, Truce, and I think that's it with us currently. And there are also 3 dragons that we have to name before we leave. There's a fire, earth, and ice dragon. Their default names are Salamander, Molten, and wait for it, Ice Dragon. I named mine Suicune because it deserves better than that. You can walk around on this little area of the hull and talk to the different crew members and name the dragons. It's a top-down exploration style experience, like a Dragon Quest or a Final Fantasy, which will become important later. There, however, at this point isn't much to do besides name your dragons and talk to Truce about some backstory and gameplay mechanics. If you ask him about commanding dragons, he tells you the mechanics that they respond to 3 different commands. You have go, come, and wait. With go, they'll go and attack the enemy. Come, they'll stay with the party and attack nearby enemies. And wait, they'll fly to safety and heal up. If you ask him about the day the sky got stained, he says that was the day that the Grand Velos Empire began their invasion. Emperor Southar, a tactical genius, had the ambition to rule the skies, and thus war began. Countless lagoons have fallen into the Empire's control, and ever since, the sky has been stained the color of sorrow. The War Dragon Squadron has to stop the Empire, lest Southar would take over the entire world. So we mount up on our dragons and we head out to with the advance party to go and attack Imperial stronghold. Meanwhile, back in the castle, in the room where Bahamut is sleeping, we meet Princess Yo-Yo, who's Kana's daughter, who's able to speak with dragons. She prays to Bahamut for protection, but she receives no response. They return back to the throne room, where an aide informs the king that the king and Yo-Yo that the Imperial forces are coming in, and that the War Dragon squadron is out doing the thing, so they're not here right now. They're like, but you just went back to talk to Bahamut, and he's going to wake up and save us all, right? And the king says, sadly, that Bahamut has abandoned Kana. But don't worry, we have the War Dragon Squadron. And at that point, Pew and the others arrive. Apparently, our battle we were gearing up to earlier to infiltrate the Imperial compound was a decoy to pull us away from the castle. So instead of the full squadron, we only have the handful that we had earlier. We run outside the castle, and now our gameplay is a grid-based tactical RPG, a la Shining Force and Fire Emblem. So you get to explore, just like in Shining Force, you get to explore the towns and stuff like that. But then when fighting starts, it's a tactical RPG, which is pretty cool. One of our party members, Madalite, takes his turn first, and he uses a lightning strike to take out the bridge to buy us some time. The mage Sindak informs us that we can still cross if we want. We would just need to use ice magic to freeze the river.
I found this part really funny. It felt like Madalite and Sindak they're not on the same page here.
Not at all. He's like, oh, let me stop this so that they can't come across. And Sindak is like, you can still cross. It's no big deal. Just do it.
However, the freezing water in order to cross it mechanic is neat, and you got to introduce it.
Yeah, so you can interact with the environment with your various attacks in this game. So like we said, you can freeze the water with ice attacks, but you also can destroy things with lightning, like Madalite did. And you probably can burn stuff too. That's the other element that you have access to, but I didn't find anything to burn yet. I was just blowing up dudes. But so yeah, it's a tactic system, but it has kind of a evolving board state, which is pretty cool. You don't see that very often. The battle proper starts, and you get your square grid cursor that you can use to select your units. If you try and select a dragon, you can't. It says this is a dragon unit and just lists their stats. You can only select Bew, Sindak, and Madalite. And Madalite already used his turn for the first turn. So when you select your unit, you're given a few options. You have move, field, attack, dragon, party, and in turn. If you move, your character can move up to their movement speed, about 5 or 6 squares, denoted by a glowing area on the floor. Field is for field level attacks and skills. This is kind of like the war game segments in Suikoden 2, where you have some skills that you can use on a macro level that affects the units on the board, like at like squad level, like a big. Words failed me for a second. This differs from attack, which is only available if you're adjacent to an enemy unit. And that takes you to a side-on Final Fantasy style battle for one turn. If you're the attacker, you go first, and if you're the defender, you go second. But both sides get to fight in each skirmish, like in Fire Emblem. These scenes are pretty cool. They have like 60 frames of animation per animation. It is wicked smooth for a Super NES game. Smoother than basically anything else I've seen. Like I just mentioned Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem has 2 frames of animation. I haven't attacked yet, and I'm done with my attack. And you switch between the 2 of them like a Captain Underpants book, and that's it. Here you get a lot more than that.
I mean, the best samurai, they just need 2 frames. A frame of removing sword from sheath, and then a frame of slipping sword back into sheath.
Exactly.
That's all you need.
In these little battles, you each character can choose attack, skill, item, and defend, just like a Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy game. And they'll do it in order and then let the enemy go, or vice versa if they're defending. So the risk reward of this battle system is that you can use weaker field skills to not have to worry about retaliation, or you can run up and use attack and deal more damage, but you have to take hits in return. When you're in the side-scrolling battles, you battle with multiple units at the same time. Each grid unit that you're controlling to move around the grid is actually up to 4 party members at the same time. The different party members and how well they work together determine your field skills, and then their individual strengths can shine in fights. So you can build balanced parties that, like, you have an attacker, a defender, a healer, and a magic user. But if you do it that way, they don't necessarily team up very well, so your field skills won't be as strong. And so you can then put 4 dudes with an axe in one party. So then your field skills will be really strong, but then in a side fight, you don't have anybody to heal you. Things like that. It's pretty cool. The dragon option lets you change your currently active dragon command, which are the 3 we mentioned earlier: go, come, and wait. And that's all that option does. Otherwise, they're completely AI controlled. The party command lets you look at your equipment and information stuff, and then in turn, obviously, ends your turn. So on your turn, you select a hero. You can select them in any order too, which is pretty cool. There's not like an initiative on your side, so you can put them exactly where you want. So you select your hero, you decide if you want to use attacks or field skills, position them accordingly, use your skill, and end your turn. And after each unit's turn, that unit's dragon that's equipped to it has its turn, and it does whatever it wants, depending on your dragon command. These dragons are like stupid strong. Like, I think Salamander starts with like 2,500 HP, and our main character has like 200-300 tops. And so even
more than that, but the dragons are very strong, which is important because they'll just fly right over into the middle of all the enemies.
Exactly. They tank is definitely what they do. They also deal a crud load of damage, but you can't control them directly, so it's a little bit balanced.
No, it is. It's a lot, but it is. It is just a crud load. It's not a crap load or a shit load. It's just a crud load.
It's just a crud load. Yeah, they basically do as much damage in either attack or field skills as like your best field skill would do. So they do comparable damage, but they are very mobile and can take a lot of hits. This battle's win condition is to beat all the enemies. So you take your turns getting as close as you can and using magic, or freezing the river and choosing crossing it to attack. And you watch your dragons fly in and kill a bunch of dudes. Every thing you do in battle gets you a little bit of experience, but if you defeat an enemy or an entire enemy party, you get additional experience and item drops. After you defeat the intruders, some more arrive and you get ready to fight them, but then someone inside of the castle to say that the Empire has broken in anyways, so we have to go inside to save the king. When we arrive inside, Emperor Southar's lackeys drag away Princess Yo-Yo, and she calls out for Bu, but they knock her out and take her away. Southar taunts King Kana, basically saying, "Where's your divine dragon now, chump?" And the king is Southar, you can't take Bahamut's power. Bahamut isn't awake. Southar is like, yes, he isn't awake yet, and then does a big ass magic and kills the king. This marks the end of the Kingdom of Kana and the end of the prologue. We are asked to save our game, so we do. Chapter 1 is called Starting Up. Years later, the Empire has succeeded in taking over the world, and people just talk about the war as if it was something that happened in ancient history, and they're just kind of dealing with the fact that the Empire rules the world. But out on the Outer Rim, on a small island, the War Dragon Squadron has reformed to try and mount a rebellion. Bu and company are getting ready to start their operation to rescue Princess Yo-Yo, but before you leave, you get another little opportunity to explore this area. There are some items you can find and a couple of flashbacks that you can see. You can flashback to see that Bu and Princess Yo-Yo were young and mostly in love, and they had almost shared this universe's equivalent of a Paupu fruit, but they got nervous and didn't do it yet. You can also flash back to the founding of the rebellion, and you can see that they've been looking for dragons because they've been rare in the years since the fall of Kana. And the arrival that Bu did at the beginning of this chapter was him coming back from that long journey to find some dragons, and he only found a couple of them. There are also a bunch of hidden items that I have no idea what they do yet. But most importantly, you can feed your dragons at this point. You can feed them all sorts of shit from your backpack, like even like armor and things like that, and it'll raise their stats in various different ways. There's not really a tutorial to it. It just says feed your dragon and then gives you a list of things to choose from. I'm sure there are a bunch of guides on the best way to do it to get the best dragons and loadouts and stuff. I already know it didn't happen to us in this thing, but I know that your dragons can evolve if you do the right thing. So I'm sure there's a guide on how to do it. I wasn't planning on playing for much longer than this, so I just gave the fire food to my fire one, the ice food to my ice one, the earth food to my earth one, and the lightning food to my lightning one. As I was feeding them, I noticed I had a flame axe, so I equipped my axe guy with the flame axe, and then we set off into the sky to take our ship back. But as we fly off, some weird little freaks show up and speak directly to me, the player, and say, "Hey, we're little freaks and we want to fight with you, but be careful because we share an HP pool." And no one talks about them again. It's weird. And just get some weird little freaks on your team.
If I wanted weird little freaks addressing me, I'd work in food service again.
I have weird little freaks addressing me all the time because I'm a father. So yeah, after the weird little freaks join us, we're granted by the pre-battle screen, which lets you manage equipment for all of the different parties. You can even glance at the upcoming war map before it begins. So if you could look and see like, oh shit, there's a lot of like fire monsters. Let me make sure that all my people have ice magic equipped or something like that. Don't have to do that. That this time there's just some dudes over there. It has options for formation and dragons, but they're grayed out for this one. In upcoming battles, I'm sure that you'll be able to adjust your starting positions and get very more tactical with the things. I then had no idea what to do because start battle was translated as sortie, which I didn't even know it was pronounced sortie because I didn't know it meant attack. I thought it was like related to soiree or something. I had no idea anything about it, and I had to Google what it meant, and I felt stupid. And I'm chronicling that for the world to see right now. So yeah, you click sortie, and then the battle starts. This battle map is on the same roof of the ship that we were on earlier, and they clearly now show that it is in fact the roof of the ship and not an island like I thought it was at the beginning of the game. This battle plays out much like the first, except this time the win condition is to defeat the boss, not the whole army. The army hits pretty hard though, so you might as well attack them on your way to the boss. I got lucky and my dragons all went after the boss on round 1 and my main character could reach him on turn 2. And so I beat this battle really quickly just because of luck of the AI. Our new dragon squadron doesn't have all the same units as before, so we don't have as many awesome skills as we did in the prologue. But it's not like we were super badass in the prologue. It's just like Malatites doesn't have a mage in his party right now. He just has axe guys, and because he doesn't have a mage, he can only do magic right next to him and not at a distance. Also, I just called him Malatite because that's how I read it the entire time I was playing it. It was only writing my notes that I realized his name was Madalite.
I mean, his name is just sort of a jumble of consonants and vowels. I just sort of thought of him as Madeline.
Yeah. Yeah, so we eventually win this fight, and then we board the ship, and we meet the pilot Hornet and his crew, who are all still loyal to Kana, and they join our cause. As we head in to regroup, Sindak asks us what we want to name the ship, because she wants it to be cool and hip with the kids, and the default name is Fahrenheit, because that's cool and hip with the kids. We gather the group together and to rally the troops. Madalite and Taicho, he's been there the whole time. He's another one of our party members. They hoist the flag of Kana in the meeting room, and we're all like, fuck yeah, we're going to defeat the Empire in the name of Kana, and it'll be awesome. And then now we see the outside of the ship, and it's kind of Star Destroyer covered in grass, which is pretty fucking cool. And it flies off into the horizon for the end of chapter 1. And that'll be the slice that we talk about for this game. You explore on foot, have a little battle, feed your dragons, explore some more, fight some more. It is very much Fire Emblem that each chapter is just one battle. So it's pretty episodic and a pretty well-defined loop. So now we're going to talk about this game and our conclusions about it after this short break. I got through all of the main parts for this game, talking about all of the good things and the things that I liked about this game. So I did not enjoy playing this game. I thought its battle system was benign. I think that its graphics are ugly, and I'm the only I Google things about Bahamut Lagoon and its graphics being ugly, and every single person says that these graphics are the best on the SNES, and I don't see it. I think it's super bad, but I'm wrong apparently, because I'm the only person that thinks this. But I think it looks
pretty good. I think more than it looking great, it looks weird and different, which is cool. It's cool that it looks weird and different from other games.
Yeah, I like that it is cool and different. I just don't like the cool and different that they settled on. I think it's unreadable what's going on in a lot of the things. But that's just me. I also thought the writing style, not just the translation style, but like the length of the cutscenes and the heavy use of flashbacks and optional things, it just made everything kind of disjointed. And most of the time you can't even see your characters, because most of the time you're in a battle and you only see Bu and not Truce, Taicho, and Bikabaka, who are still there with you. They're just a part of your sprite for most of the time. So when they would show up, it was really hard for me to keep things straight. And I'm sure...
I don't see that wasn't a problem at all for me. You're wrong again.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure if I played more of it and pushed through it, it would. I feel this game is probably like Final Fantasy 13, where if I was doing a JRPG Canon episode on just chapters 1 and 2 of Final Fantasy 13, I would also not like it, because those the games are really rough. And if we didn't have Maddie on codex duty, we wouldn't have understood anything that was going on. And I feel it's kind of the same way here. If you're not going and fully exploring and finding all of the optional flashbacks and doing all of the stuff, it's a lot worse than it is. And I'm sure as it goes forward, you'll get a lot more understanding in things. In some of the interviews I was looking at, like the interviewer talked about like, oh, my favorite character is so and so and blah blah blah, and like one of them said that Taicho was his favorite, and he has one line where he climbs up and hangs up a flag this time around. So I'm sure there will be more stuff in the future, but this first part I didn't like too much.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that you have not in fact received the full breadth of every character in this 1 hour slice we played.
Yes. I am sure that it's probably better if I stuck around. But what I played so far does not make me want to stick around. I
think this whole section would have been a lot better if I had read the manual. But the manual's in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, as far as I can tell, there's not like there's like guides and stuff here and there, but there's not like an actual translation of the manual.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I could read a bit about the lore and the characters and the mechanics before jumping into this game, it would go down a lot better.
Yeah. Especially when I got to the feed your dragons part, I was like, this feels like something that doesn't have a tutorial because this game came with a manual. And I unfortunately cannot check the manual to see what's going on. But I do think this game probably has a lot of cool depth with like the different ways you can feed your dragons, and like every single unit has equipment, and so there's like a crap load of customizing that you can do in the game, and it seems like the exact kind of game that I would have ate up in 2002, but I am no longer in 2002, and I'm like visually repulsed by this game, and I don't know why I'm so wrong about that, but there it is. But I am really glad that we covered this game. I wish we had covered Shining Force first, because this game is a spiritual successor to Shining Force in a whole bunch of ways, and we haven't covered a Shining Force game at all on this podcast, so no one would know what I'm talking about.
I do think this also would have been a lot better if the characters had talking head portraits when they spoke. And part of me, when I thought I would love to have that, my gut reaction to myself was to think, oh, but you can't expect that at something of this scale in 1996 on the Super Nintendo. But then I was like, wait, no, Fire Emblem did that in 1990 on the Famicom.
Mm-hmm. Shining Force has them, and it's the same sort of thing, and it works wonders in Shining Force's case.
Because these sprites are very small. It's hard to really get a feel for the characters when they're just saying a couple lines, because we're introducing a bunch of characters. And if we could just see a bit of their character design in a talking head, that would be really nice. And also that is a good way to indicate if someone is a major character we need to pay attention to, or a minor character who's just here for this scene. And also, I believe you referred to Sindak as she. You would have picked up that Sindak was an old man if we had that.
Yeah, I didn't pick up that at all. So yeah, this game is good enough that if it got a remake, like a HD 2D remake, or even like how Suikoden 1 and 2 are just getting a loving Code of Paint remake, I would probably play it and probably enjoy it a lot. But as it is right now, I don't think I'll play more. And I think this is the first one on the audio form that I said I'm not going to play more. except for maybe Final Fantasy 1. I think I said I wasn't going to play Final Fantasy 1 NES anymore. But yeah. Sorry to Cerebral Wind that this is your favorite game and you paid for it for me to not like it, but I stuck out for 38 minutes to talk about how good it was.
Yeah, I think it was pretty okay. I do think that the storytelling in this opening slice we played is a little all over the place, and like, I get it. Writing the opening of a story is hard, but yeah, you can tell this story wasn't constructed with a grand vision for it that was perfectly planned out going in right from the beginning. It's in media res, and it is sort of ham-fisted, and I was like, I feel like there's better ways to convey a lot of this. I don't know, just do a fucking opening crawl that gives me a bunch of lore. Final Fantasy VI did that, and it was fine. Yeah,
it could be a lot better. If you, Bernard, or you, listener, are being like, I completely disagree with Sam, this game looks great, I want to play it. It is infamous for its twist ruining it. I, while writing my notes, stumbled upon what the twist was, and I would be frustrated if I did it. Some people love the twist, but just so you know, there is a plot twist down the line that people really hate. So,
well, you should continue playing this game and get to the plot twist and love it.
Yeah, so I could just be a complete contrarian.
Yes.
Yeah, I try to not be a contrarian. I try to find good in everything, and I feel like I succeeded.
Well, often you're a contrarian by liking bullshit, so
it's true.
So that goes with finding the good in things.
Yeah, so,
I like a lot of bullshit too.
I've earned not liking one thing that people think is good because I've liked a lot of things that people think are bullshit.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm glad I played this game at the very least. Shining Force is one of my favorite games basically of all time, and seeing a actual Shining Force has been pretty cool because there's not a lot of those. And I'm glad that this one was here. Do you have anything else more to say before we wrap it up?
Another thing that frustrated me about this game's storytelling is I felt like the tone was all over the place. Everything about the visual style of the game made me feel like this was we're going to take this shit dead serious. This is drama. This is romance. This is fucking Game of Thrones. But then there would also occasionally be weird, goofy shit. Like, when everyone's like, Bu's coming back, it feels like we're about to break out into a musical number because Bu's coming back. Then Bu's Dragonlands, and spotlights appear from nowhere and shine on him. And I'm like, what? And then some weird little freaks show up. Yeah. And I'm like, what? Which maybe I'm just asking a game to be something it isn't.
Yeah.
But it felt weird to me. Maybe that was just the expectations I brought in, but it was weird.
Yeah, it's very... Yeah, I'd agree that its tone is all over the place because it definitely looks super serious, and then you get weird little freaks that there's something that's called dance. And they just do a weird little freak dance.
Also, fucking Magic Harp or whatever his name is. When he is in the hut, you go in, he's facing away from you, you talk to him, and he's like, he says some weird shit about his memories of Princess Yo-Yo. And then in a bit, when you see the flashback, you'll find out that he also is in love with Princess Yo-Yo. There's like some sort of love triangle thing. But anyway, you talk to him, he's he says some weird wistful shit about Princess Yo-Yo, and then he skirts along the wall, facing away from you to exit the house. I'm like, what the fuck was that? The only explanation I can come up with is that he was hiding a boner.
Or something, yeah. Because if you look at the shelf right next to him, you find, quote, something unmentionable. And the shelf on the other side, you find a nudie mag as well.
Oh, I didn't check the shelves. I just checked the chest where you find the special thing that unlocks memory.
There's also a really weird part when you're,
which I now realize you were like opening Magikarp's memory, but he wasn't there for most of it.
Yeah, I think you took his special thing is something that reminds you of Yo-Yo, and so you have your own memory of Yo-Yo.
Okay.
But there's another scene that's weird and doesn't fit the vibe. When you're all getting ready to hoist the flag, Madalite is running late and is known to give like long-winded speeches. So he starts talking and someone turns to you and says, "Would you like a fast forward button?" And you say yes. And then the rest of the scene plays in fast forward, and Madalite like runs to his spot and finishes up his stuff faster. And it's weird for this game.
I don't remember that, but I was playing the old translation. I don't know why that's the one I had, but I wasn't going to spend the time to get the new one without even knowing if I like this game or not.
Yeah. But yeah, it was just a lot of little weird things in this game. But yeah, I think that'll do it for this episode. If you would like to sponsor a JRPG Canon episode, you can do so on the web at www.rpgbook.club. It should be an RPG, but the definition of RPG and how canon they should be is up to you. But it should be at least be able to spin it as an entry in the JRPG Canon. Otherwise, since this is our first JRPG Canon episode that is backer exclusive, I don't have to tell you how to be a backer. So you guys rule. Shout outs to our warrior patrons. We have It's Clara Time, Frosthair, Dragon Slayer 19, Floris, Kaeldron, Freddy Rodriguez, Aaron 524, Jfro Prime, and Doho. And then shout out to our luminaries, El Tantavi, who wants you to check out critical-distance.com, an aggregator for games criticism and journalism. Shout outs to William Taylor, who wants you to check out rpgamer.com, reviews for people like us by people like us. And shout out to Vimk, who wants you to play Legend of Legaia. It's that RPG you keep forgetting about on the PS1. And then shout outs to Carr, who's a dentist, so he's not plugging a website, but rather your own mouth. And he says to brush your teeth twice a day, most importantly, the time before you go to bed. For the JRPG Canon, I have been Sam Allman.
I've been Bernard.
Go play some games.